welcome to the L-5 podcast. So today we have Corey, we have Brian, Jeremy, me, and we have a special guest with us today, Stacy. Hey, Stacy. Okay, so for today's podcast, we're doing something a little bit different. So as you know, we do usually, if we're doing TV series, which we are today, we're doing Lovecraft Country.
Uncle George, the reason I'm back home, my father, he's gone missing. 1, 2, 3. He wrote me. The place he wants me to go is in Lovecraft Country. 1, 2, 3. This place. 1, 2, 3. Is dangerous.
I thought the world was one way and found out it isn't.
When we do TV series, we normally watch 2 episodes and then we come together, we talk about it, rate it, and then talk about whether we are going to continue the series or not. So this time it's a little bit different in that we actually watched the first 3 episodes of Lovecraft, and some of us have actually seen the entire series already, but we are going to do our best to just concentrate on the first 3, so no spoilers about the rest of it if you haven't seen it yet. But we did want to go ahead and talk about these first 3 episodes. And I chose 3 instead of 2 this time just because episode 3 was really important to me. So we'll just kind of dive in. Hopefully everybody has seen this. This show is on HBO. And I guess I'll go first and talk a little bit about my thoughts. I don't know if you guys want to go episode to episode, just kind of jam them all together or what. No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Start wherever you want. We'll just follow.
Okay, So I'll start just with the first episode. So the first episode, obviously, is where we're introduced to all the main characters in here. We've got Atticus, we got Letitia, we got who's known as Letty. We got we see Ruby. We meet Hippolyta at the very beginning. There's just so many people in here, and I have to look up their names because I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. But anyway, we'll get to
Uncle George.
Uncle George.
Yeah, and Montrose.
And Montrose. And
Yep.
I'm trying to think, it's Art and Dee.
Diana.
Yep. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else like of the major ones. If I'm missing.
Not the major ones. I think you got everyone.
Okay. So we start off, and so this is, like I said, where we meet all of them. And it all starts with Atticus. He gets a letter from his dad, and his dad has gone missing. So he's basically come home to find him. And so his dad is in Arkham. Is it Arkham? Arkham.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm not gonna. Why am I giving y'all a synopsis? We don't give y'all. A synopsis. What am I doing?
It's not a book report. It's okay.
So this first episode, I really got into this. So one thing I'll say is this: the one thing that I like about Lovecraft is that it mixes a genre that probably I normally would never watch or would not want to watch that often because it would get me down in the dumps, and a genre that I love. And it mixes them together in a way that I've honestly never really seen done. So what we've got is a horror series, but it's also mixed together with like historical things and like racism, segregation, all that kind of stuff. And normally you wouldn't think those two go together very well, but yeah, this show is so amazing. And so like in the first episode, we're just getting to know the characters, and then, I'm like, okay, this is interesting, it's good, but where's my horror? And so towards the end, where we see, I call them demigorgons, I don't know what they're really called. I thought that was awesome. I was like, oh, okay, I'm here for this. Like, I knew right in there I was gonna be watching this show. And the funny thing is that, like, on HBO, you had to watch them one a week. And I'm a Netflix girl. Like, I usually watch mine back to back. So the fact that I even finished this series on time tells you like how much I liked it. because normally I don't have time for that. I would just wait till they were all out and watch them back to back. But this one, I was like so engrossed in. So that's how I'll start like the first episode. Anybody want to go next?
Well, I guess I'll go next if someone
All
wants to
right.
say anything. I read the book first. I actually read the book a few years ago. So when I heard about that there was going to be a TV show, and then they were saying who was producing it, it's like, oh, let's see. I can't wait till it comes out. And it did not disappoint for me. There is a lot of there's enough differences between the book and the TV show that I kind of knew some things that were coming were going to happen, but they changed it in such a way that it made it to me better, which is the first time I've ever watched a TV show or a movie based on the book, and I actually liked the TV show better than the book because they really did a great job to me on that. The whole book. Well, have y'all, seen The Help or read The Help or anything like that?
I
Seen The
read
Help.
inside.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, when I see The Help or I read part of The Help, it's like, to me, a white person, it's like I'm writing about how it is for Black people, and I talk to people who work for me when I did that. And so when that's the case, sometimes when you're talking to a boss, you're like, oh yeah, it's okay here. So you're not given a full story of how it is. It's just the best perspective because you're talking to someone who has power over you. Then when I read this, it was like, okay, someone wrote about it, and they actually are coworkers, and so you kind of talk to them a little bit differently. It's like, yeah, this was happening, but it's not. But again, you're like, I still work with you, so I don't need to tell you exactly how I feel about the situation. But the show was like, this is how it really is here. It was really more intense. It was actually, to me, more centric on the historical aspect of how it was for being Black during that time. That it touched on in the book, but it went to really a lot of detail, which made it a whole lot realistic, which made it a lot scarier too for me. And overall, I could not wait to the next episode. And again, I'm used to Netflix or, whole thing, all 10 episodes. Okay, it's the weekend. Let's binge watch this.
Exactly.
But this was like every week. It's like, okay, can't wait for the next episode. And it's like, also can't wait till next Friday so I can talk to Dana about it. It was just that exciting. And it was one of those shows that I could watch and I just really enjoyed. And when you watch it the second time, it's like, oh, I missed that. And then when you watch it that first time, you get a good sense of this really good episode. But then you watch the second time or the third, depending on how you're watching it, you're like, oh, I didn't notice that. Oh my gosh, someone noticed, just the little stuff that they put in there. It's like they really, it was just a really good writing and everything for the show. I really enjoyed this.
I want to speak to something you just said that it reminded me of. It's like, I've heard about all of these things, like the Green Book and all this other stuff. Now, I didn't see the movie, but I've heard about these things in terms of historical. But it is one thing to hear about it; it's another thing to see it play out on screen. And that's one thing that this show has done for me. And while, I've never had a horror movie that took me through so many emotions, aside from being scared or maybe a laugh here or there, right? So that was kind of the thing that really got me. Is I was just like I heard of sundown towns, but to see the sun and to see how it plays out for real, like y'all, I was just like, I was angry, but at the same time, just like so sucked into it, to see how things really were that, I don't know. It gave me chills. I loved it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll piggyback on what both of you guys were saying. I agree. I was in the same boat where the previews for this show really hooked me in, and not only from just like the people who I saw who was acting in it, but also from a producer standpoint. So you had Jordan Peele, you had J.J. Abrams, and there was a third also who did the show. I can't remember her name, but she did the show Underground for HBO, I believe. And so you had all these people who brought in different aspects of horror, science fiction, and just, all about, racism and all this kind of stuff like that, blending together. I thought the production value of everything that was there was just like outstanding as well, on par with, the acting. What I liked was that there were moments of like just like sure realism. A lot of the acting and stuff was just like so natural in the reactions of things that they did. In particular, scenes like in the first episode where they're in the restaurant and they're talking about the whole White House and why they painted the White House white, and Letitia's in the back room and she comes darting out. She's like, "We gotta get the F out of here." It's such a natural reaction to what she had seen and what was about to happen, that it was almost like some of the things that they wrote into the script was ad lib almost. I mean, it was like just so natural. I like the fact that not only was it scary and was it really dramatic, it was also funny. Like there were moments of comedy that were spruced in there that you didn't expect to happen, and it was just natural comedy. But again, like to what Dana was saying, I've seen racism play out in other types of films and TV shows, but something about the way that they did it in this show really latched on to me, and then it is interesting how you have a show like this that comes out on HBO, where sometimes they do put them out in full, well, not HBO, but like Netflix puts out full seasons like they do. This goes back to that old era of must-watch TV, of where the family, this is not a family show, so don't get your family and try to watch this together, but where the family would basically sit around at 8 o'clock on Thursday. It's like, okay, the new episode of whatever's coming on, and everybody would just wait for that to come on. And you wonder sometimes if those things are going to work out, on streaming, if that method works, and it does. To what Stacey was saying about how you like this TV show more than you did the book, I felt that way about the other show that HBO did, The Watchmen. So this made me think about The Watchmen when I was watching this show, of where they blend realistic historic events that happen to African Americans, and then also add into the science fiction part of it as well. And I love the Watchmen graphic novel. Like, it's probably my favorite book of all time. And so I didn't know how they were going to do that with that show, and they did the exact same thing. So HBO is really doing some really great content with just blending these multiple genres together to tell this story that you know from somewhere else.
And the creator, Corey, her name is Misha Green.
Misha Green, yeah.
I'm surprised. I know Corey has opinions about Jordan Peele and some of the.
I do. I'm very strong about Jordan Peele.
I know his opinion. So when he said that, I had my ear to the screen, because I know that his view of Jordan Peele's view of horror and how this like black character and like how he manipulates and uses it in movies is very interesting.
Yeah.
And, I think about Get Out and Us. And so I'm glad you actually said his name, because I was interested to see, is this going to be like a Us Part 2, which I was like, we need to move on. Let's go on to a different, but because there's so many directors and people involved in it, obviously it's different. I really enjoyed it as well. I was the last one out of the group, Stacey, to see it. So this group said, you need to see it. And it was mentioned. I was like, I really need to see this. So I saw the first episode and I loved it, because I feel that it does have some Easter eggs in there that you have to go back and rewind and look a little bit. You don't have to go back like and watch the whole thing. But if you miss, I think Corey was saying earlier, if you miss a couple seconds, you look down, you particularly miss an important part that connects to episode 2, which connects to the last part of episode 3. So it's all this intertwining storyline, which I know some people probably like independent episodes, but I actually like for my storyline to be linear. That's just kind of how my mind is. And so I like that each episode, at least the first 3 that I saw, had some connection. And I'm not going to jump into that until we do it later. But for the first episode, the monsters and the Smollett, she was running. I was like, Lord, she running, she taking off. When she was running in the woods, I said, that's genuine running. That's a sister on the track team at Dudley High School in Greensboro. I mean, she taking off, and I was like, this is just that authenticity that I really like. You have the sheriffs and you have this kind of like disparity between, you have these movies that I think point out race and racism, but in the way they do it, it can be very like, I guess copy paste and very like, oh, this trope is used before, so we're going to use it. I think they did it differently. And I like that they went in a separate path. And it was very creative as well. And I think it wasn't something I've seen before. Like when the sheriff was hitting the car, I was like, I like that. Like keep making me fearful. Keep making me think that somebody gonna get shot or someone's gonna get killed or someone's gonna get hurt in a certain way, because that adds the realism to it. I think that the characters were chosen very intentionally, and I think that they were chosen in a way that I think their acting skills fit the character, if that makes sense. And so some of the I think Letty, like, she stands out in all the episodes. I would say she's probably the like winner in terms of my favorite, in terms of expression and being one of the stronger actors. But everyone pretty much, I think, had a certain strong performance in the first 3 episodes. So I'm very curious to see what the other ones look like. But yeah, I liked it. I mean, if I had to, I don't know what the ratings will be, but it definitely would have been a 4.5 for me. If we had to like do our 17 minutes thing, or we had to like review episode 1, it would definitely been a 4.5 for me, easily, without hesitation.
In terms of keeping it real, Jeremy, I don't know if y'all noticed, but when Letty got in the car, when they were on their way before she had to do her running, did y'all notice her shoe change? She had on flats when she left her brother's house. She was wearing heels that whole time. And then when she left his house, she had on flats. Something she told me. That's good. Every time we see her, what you got on this flats?
Right.
But they kept it real. She won't in heels running through the woods, or whatever.
Right.
Right. Sure enough. Yep, I did notice that.
Yeah, that's funny.
So what really struck me early on, especially in episode 1, is how the horror of the storyline, they manifested this bitter racism that we all know is real. They manifested that into these monsters, and they made that so tangible for any viewer. I mean, it was just so masterfully done. It was so beautiful and powerful. It was just horrifying. Watching these stories as a white person. I really think that they made that fear, that real fear, very tangible for anyone, and they really illustrated it just beautifully. I think like when Jeremy, you were saying that just the stories of historical racism just being shown and depicted with just regular human people, you kind of see it on one strict dramatic level, but when you can add some fictional elements in here, you can add the sci-fi and the fantasy elements to it, you really can tell the story in very different ways. And Star Trek did that too. So they take it out of context so that more people can understand it. You can absolutely see it from different people's points of view instead of just being straight with it. So I think that this kind of storytelling is so important, and it's just hitting the mark right at the right time. We need this year so badly.
Brian, just what you said, it's funny because the creator, Misha Green, that's one of the things that she strives to do, or she talked about. So with Underground, which I have not seen, but she talked about how people didn't necessarily want to watch a movie about this, right? So she added, like, I guess, like some suspense or some thriller or some mystery to it or whatever. You're still watching a story about this, but I've dragged you in and I've got you all wind up in it because of, the the other thing that I've got you here. And I feel like that's kind of what they did. Because if you were like, hey, Dana, Roots is on HBO, let's go, I would have been like, you know what? Maybe not stay. But if you were like, you know, but if you tell me this is on, you know, and it's something scary, something I knew and I haven't seen done this way, then I'm going to be all there for it, just because it's a genre that I really love. But it got me to, I mean, much like this podcast, it got me to open my eyes up to other things.
Yeah,
that's good. That's interesting too, because on top of that, when I was watching the trailer for this, what hooked me was the horror aspect of it. And when you're watching the TV show, especially in the first episode, I'm waiting for the horror aspect to come in. And so this whole other story is being told. I didn't really care so much about the horror aspect anymore for a good while. So when the horror part comes in, I was shocked, because I was like, whoa, because it's not like a little teeny little horror, like I'm going to catch a little wrist and you go bleed a little bit. It was like full on horror, gore, bam, right in your face. I was like, wow. Okay.
And they tuned you into it. So the scene you were talking about, Dana, about the sundown town, being on the road, trying to get out of the state before the sun goes down, just watching the sun go down. I mean, if this was a vampire movie, you'd be worried about vampires coming out. But, you know, if you've got a wooden stake, you're probably fine. The stakes were a lot higher there. And it was just remarkable just how much power those scenes had. It was amazing. And then the payoff, of course, when they're in the woods and the monsters jumped out and it became Evil Dead. Evil Dead meets Stranger Things. It was awesome.
I mean, and they were smart. They were like, okay, light obviously impacts this monster. So like, we've seen movies where they act so dumb. Like, use the flares, use your weapons, use what you got to progress the story. Like, they were actually knowledgeable. I mean, we've seen movies where, like, I hate to say it, like, the black actors have to dumb themselves down. I hate that. Like, don't give me these kind of like, woe is me. Like, let them actually like struggle and challenge themselves and push through situations. Don't make it easy for them. And so I like that too. Because I was like, I like Corey was saying about the horror, I was like, what are they going to do? If this is I literally said this, y'all, this is the first episode. What do all these other episodes look like? Is the monsters going to grow? Is such going to happen? Obviously, at the very end, they take us to the house. I was like, okay, so there's we ain't getting the Monsters 2.0. We're getting a developmental part of where they're going. Obviously, the father is somewhere in this story. Obviously, there's some connection between the uncle and then, you know, and I was like, is the uncle the dad? Like, I just had some theories. So y'all know my theory brain just started cranking. So, but I like that. Keep me guessing after the first episode. Do not paint the full picture. Give me some cliffhangers. Give me some Easter eggs. So that's what I like about it. It is not so formulaic where it's like so easy to just kind of get loose. I think the first episode sets the standard. And we've all seen, for you, Stacey, we see TV series as well. We get thrown off when the first episode is horrible. Like, I know me, Corey, Brian, Dana have seen some stuff where it's like, number one ain't good, so why am I trusting the rest of your series? And this one started off very good, so therefore I knew the other two had to be at least pretty decent, if not good. So yeah, I was excited to see 2 and 3 because 1 already set the high standard. Whereas sometimes it progresses, this one already set it high. So I was worried.
And one more thing to say what you were saying, Brian, Jeremy, about like, don't dumb it down and let it be real. What's also interesting is if you go back and you look, when they're in that, we'll call it a shed, you know, and while the monsters are attacking, it's like you would think at that moment maybe the writer would probably forget and just loosen it up a little bit and have the sheriff and them team up together to try and kill these monsters. You still have that sheriff being as racist as he can be, okay? The racism is still there because he's telling certain people to go back to the car because these other people may know a little bit too much. You can't have the gun because I'm still racist. Like, I don't like you, you know, blah, blah. I'm not going to let you have the power that I have. And it was like, that's real. You know what I'm saying? They didn't dumb that down. They kept it at the level where it was supposed to be. You know?
So let me
Oh,
ask
and the
first.
no, but I was talking about the how you said the racism there in that little shack, and it was also with that deputy. The deputy seeing something's going on with the sheriff, but he's like, I'm still over this side of the room with the
Right.
sheriff and not over the side. It was
Right.
just that kind of, I'm so racist that I'm gonna stick over this side, even though he's starting to make weird noises and starting to change. But
Yeah, exactly.
I still
but
don't want to be on that side. Yeah,
Yeah,
on
that's
that side of that
ridiculous.
shack
that's
and the
crazy.
suspense.
No, go ahead.
No, and about the car scene. I really liked that scene too because when they were trying to, we said Bram Stoker's Dracula. Well, he said Dracula, but I was thinking of Bram Stoker's Dracula. That end part when they were trying to rush to wherever, it was the same thing. The sun is going down. It's like, does the sun go down that fast? And it's going down. And at the same time, they're like, you can't speed, you can't go too fast because he's gonna pull you over for that. And all of that, once he finally gets over the railroad tracks, you're like, yes, they made it. And it's like police cars right there.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can't help but win, can't win from losing. And you think that's how it is, well, to a point now, depending on how you want to go, but especially like then, it didn't matter that how they dressed, how they looked, how they acted, it didn't matter. You're gonna be treated like crap. And you kind of saw that at the very beginning, when he was on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's on the bus breaks down. Him and the other lady, they didn't take them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, I was thinking to myself, because that's the day people are dressed up to go when they travel. So it's like, I know she's not wearing walking shoes. She's just wearing shoes. And if he wasn't there, they're gonna leave her on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, have to walk back to the city. And no one cared. And it's just, that was how life was. And it didn't matter what you did, because you saw how intelligent later on Montrose, George, all of them were. You can kind of see it with Ruby. When I watched it again, I heard some of the stuff that she was saying in the background. And I was like, oh, okay, she's one of those. She's one of those. I'm respectable. I should be, if everybody was like me, we'd be farther ahead. And it's like, I wouldn't go that way, but you kind of hear some of the stuff that she's saying too. Because in the end, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter because how those people felt about you. And it was a great show, but at the same time, you're like, oh my gosh, this is depressing, but it's good. I mean, it's a good show, but at the same time, you see how life was, and it's like, it was such a struggle. And up to the point, there are things still need to have work on. But at that time, you can't help but be just excited, not excited, but proud of what your ancestors accomplished. Because people have those things like, I'm not my ancestors. Like, no, you're probably not, because if you saw what they went through, we were like, as soon as something, I gotta walk 20, 30 miles,
Oh no, I'm not going.
It's just the things that they went through, and that was just life, and that was it. So I was really, and the changes from the book. I mean, if you don't mind me saying, the book.
Okay.
Like in spoiler alert, when George dies, that's not in the book at all. So as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, this is gonna be different from the book, and it really was really good. I mean, even though I did not like that he died, because he's in the later stories that they have, his part's like, how are you gonna replace him? They did a great job, even though I didn't like that he died. They did a great job without him, and then changing those things with Christina, adding her in there, making that character a woman instead. That was all really good. And at the first time, I didn't think it would work, but they end up making her a very strong character.
So leading into that, so we can go on into episode 2, where we meet Christina, and this is where we also meet Montrose. And one of the things that stands out about this to me, we also meet William, and I don't know, Fitz is name in the show. Tony Goldwyn, I don't know what his name is in the show. He's not there very long, but we meet him too. But one of the things I was going to say, we talked about it also having a sense of humor. So when Montrose dug his way out of the dungeon and he comes up, like, I joked to Corey, and this is horrible, I was like, he came up like this is the Underground Railroad. And so he comes up and he's feeling all good. And then he turns and like, hey, we're just standing there like, what are you doing? No big deal. What? I just laughed out. I just thought it was so funny. I love how this show goes from like scary to anger to funny. It's just like everywhere. To sad. Because speaking of sad, y'all, when George died and Atticus comes out there and he is at the car. And I know that's still in episode 1, but I gotta mention it.
That was episode 2.
Episode 2. It's episode 2.
Oh, episode 2. Sorry. That was real. That was real, y'all. That how his act. I mean, that blubbering, crying, that's real. And I was just, my heart broke for him. And I know the guy wasn't really dead, but I was just like, real life. But I was like, this is my first. And the actor, what's his first name? Majors. I know it's his last name.
Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've seen him in other things. He looked very familiar to me, but I wasn't sure. I promise you I'll know him going forward because his acting has just been off the hook for me, at this point in this show. I mean, I feel his emotions. He's got a lot of pent up anger and things and stuff just waiting to bust out. And I can only imagine as it goes, further down the episodes that will happen. But yeah. So when I saw him crying, oh, I felt that.
Yeah, I've only seen Jonathan Majors in 2 things. I saw him in a movie called White Boy Rick, which came out last year, I think, or 2 years before that. And then recently in Da 5 Bloods. So that's where I knew him from more than before I saw Lovecraft Country, is when he was in Da 5 Bloods. But yeah, I mean, episode 2 was really, really good, where we are introduced to Christina. And I can't remember the other guy's name. William. Yeah, those were all great. And what I really so Dana's like, they introduce horror and blah blah blah. They add in spruces of comedy. They hit you right off the top with the comedy with the moving on up from Jefferson. I was like, that was so fun. We're just laughing and smiling and trying on different clothes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that was just fantastic. I was like, that's the perfect way to open up this show. Because they're in this big old mansion, they're just like, oh yeah, we done made it now. But then when you realize it's like, that's all just like spells to make them forget, what they just did, a few minutes ago in the shed and all the monsters and everything. It was to get them to forget all that stuff that was going on. So I thought that was really, really good because she comes out there and they're eating breakfast and she's like, I need some salt. White people don't be seasoning their food.
Mad that he knew what she wanted.
Yeah.
She didn't even ask for it. She rang the bell.
No, she was going to get hot sauce next.
Exactly. No, but it was just so good. And I mean, you just got great, I just hated also that Courtney B. Vance, died so soon. I was just like, he's such a great actor. He's probably one of the most known actors in this whole cast, I think. You kill him off in the second episode, it lets you know that there are real stakes in this show. And they're going to pull some punches and do some things that you don't expect, Were you
worried? Because it did seem like he had more knowledge of whatever is going on than everybody else. So I was like, how are you going to kill him?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that raised the stakes even higher, didn't it?
Exactly.
Because then everybody had to figure it all out.
Yep. And now we have to be able to put all of our focus in these other characters so that we're not just latching on to Uncle George and, the most well-known person in the show, let's say for most people, to carry the weight. So I just thought it was really, really great. You get a lot of history going on there in the second episode, learning about different things like the Book of Names and the whole family, stuff behind it. we get more witchcraft type stuff when they are having their illusions. So when, there's the whole love scene between Tick and Letitia, and then you also have Tick fighting against, Gia, and all the other kind of stuff. He's just throwing on all these magical things, all this all these magical things that are happening to them, whatever, because of these spells that are going on in this house. So that just adds more intrigue to like, what is actually happening? What's going on? So I thought it was great. I loved episode 2. I thought it was really, really good.
Well, I was just going to add, the other thing about George's death is in venturing off from the book is ultimately, and I'm not going to spoil this for Jeremy or anyone else, but since they did kill him this early in the series, that actually made some things way more powerful, I think, with him being dead at the end, near the end of the series, that I think really paid off and made that a lot more dramatic. So as a story, I think that was a really good choice.
Mm-hmm.
More to come.
Well, I was going to talk about that part of the scenes where they were each in their own rooms and have that little fantasy thing that was happening, the illusions. And that was, again, about the human zoos they used to have. And I was like, because they're just watching, they can't see this going on, but they're drinking their champagne and watching as you get, attempted to be defiled by a snake penis. I mean, it was just really, and they're just sitting there watching and drinking. It's like, they don't see them as people. Just entertainment.
They were entertainment. Like, they might as well watching TV, just like I said, the zoo. Like, I feel like whatever spell or whatever they put on them was to give them each what they got, and then they watched it for entertainment purposes. That's exactly how I felt watching that. But I'm trying to think, like,
you kind of get a little bit of Get Out from that.
You do.
That's kind of like a Jordan Peele thing with the whole Get Out, what they were doing with that part. So
yeah, I think visually, this was my favorite episode visually, in terms of, y'all know I love editing and visuals, and I like for the, Dana with the Get Out. Do it again.
I have a prop.
There we go, guys. Got our first prop. There we go. And yeah, it's just, yeah, no, you're good. It's raining hard, so I have to mute my mic. I mean, it is coming down over here. A couple things about the second episode that I liked. Visuals, like I said, the little frames had the name. There were some other little pieces of the kind of like science and the magic and some of the, like Corey was saying, the book of names. There were certain books that had certain, I was like, I don't understand it. So I had to rewind a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I had to like go back, because my fear was if I missed parts of this this episode 2, I was gonna be lost. And so I had, to me, that's just kind of who I am personally. I have to understand a lot before I move on. So for this episode, I wanted to know, like, who are these characters? Who is this, Courtney, who is this inheritance that she is, controlling and manipulating these characters? And obviously episode 3, we see more of that. So not to get into that, but I love the intrigue of episode 2 that was different than episode 1, but kept me still captivated to see what was going on between the, historical pieces. Like, there's a little bit of the Bible, but obviously we know that it's going in the evil direction. We know that there's some scenes that, for me, I was like, I didn't expect that to happen. There was the ancestor that showed up in that kind of, I was like, I didn't like, what is this? I want to know more about this. But that was cool. I like that part as well. And another part that I liked was the woman under that I guess it was the big stone castle or something like that. I don't know what the structure it is. That was intriguing to me, because I knew, black bears, and the way she was talking about black people, I was like, wow. Like, again, like Dana was saying, that racism that keeps revolving and coming back. And so her character was intriguing to me, but I knew it was a side character. I was like, I know she about to be killed, something about to happen to her. Don't really care, but stop being racist. Okay, thank you. So, for a minute, please. So, yeah, this episode was cool to me. It was just a lot. It was a little overwhelming visually at certain points, but I like that. The robes that they were wearing, I was paying attention to all the symbols. I was like, again, visually, I like to pay attention to those small things because I think they manifest later. So that's why I said it was a little overwhelming for me, because it was so much going through the screen, and it was like flashbacks. You know, they went to the house, then they flashed back to the mansion. Then it was a lot of flashback editing, which is cool. I get it. But it was a lot. So, but I still liked it. It did not sacrifice in quality for me, and it kept me going. So my score didn't change, but it was just, to me, you can tell me you all's opinion, but episode 2 was the most in terms of all this content that kept us going from, I know it was like a couple minutes shorter than the first episode, but it seemed longer. I don't know if
I
that
didn't even notice that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can go ahead and start talking about episode 3, which happens to be my favorite episode at this point. And it's actually called The Holy Ghost, or Holy Ghost. And so this is the one where Letitia gets a house in the white neighborhood and basically is haunted. And I'll just go ahead and say that this, again, you know how I was telling you how this show takes me through my feelings? Y'all, have you ever cried at a horror movie? Or a horror TV show? Like, y'all, I was like in tears when this happened, because at the point that we see the people that have had medical experiments performed on them, and knowing that that was real, you know, in terms of obviously not real in the show, but like stuff like that really happened, and probably worse than what we saw. Like, these were human beings. I don't care what color their skin was. I was reading up on this because I was just like so upset when I watched it. And I was reading about like how some people felt that because people were Black, they didn't need anesthesia. They didn't feel pain. Even though you're yelling, hollering, and screaming while you're doing this to them, they don't feel pain. Using slaves, who obviously did not consent to any of this, to perform medical treatments. And it's so interesting to me because I know that a lot of the stuff that we do medically now is off the backs of somebody, right? You know, it always starts, even with this new vaccine that's coming out, you know, first people to take it or first people to get it, you know, we don't know everything that they'll ultimately end up going through. Now, it's a little different because they consented, but we know that everything that comes out, somebody was the guinea pig to come out with. So even though now you're like, oh, we're so happy we have this procedure, if you sit down and think about why you may have it and what the person who initially went through to get it to you, it can be heartbreaking. So like one of the guys, and I don't remember his name, and I know I should research some stuff, but I looked it up a while ago. He's known supposedly as the father of
Gynecology.
Gynecology. He practiced on Black slaves. And I think he didn't use anesthesia either. He would let people come in and watch his work. They were saying one woman, he performed over 30 surgeries on her without anesthesia. He's known for inventing the speculum. And anybody who has experienced using that, it can be painful in its current state. Imagine what somebody went through during testing to get it to the point that it is today. And, you know, and that's minor compared to some of the stuff I know that was done. So anyway, just seeing what was done to these people, in particular for me, it was the lady who looked like he removed her breast. And it also looked like she had a child in her arms. And I was just like, and you know, when Letty is standing there holding everybody's hands, like, I'm scared because like looking at all this, like I'm totally freaked out, but I was so pissed and so mad. I was yelling with Letty, like, you know, get the hell out, and you know, all this kind of stuff, that it took me from fright. I would, you know, like if they were up in my house, like I would think I'd be scared to death. But seeing that, I was angry. That's what I felt more than anything. I was so angry. And for the show to get that out of me, you know, in an hour, because y'all know I try to not do that kind of stuff. I don't watch a lot of this sappy stuff. I'm not trying, you know, whatever, life is enough as it is. But this took me there. It really, really did. This has to be, I will say, for me, I'll just go ahead and say it. Not only is it probably my favorite episode of this season so far, but it's probably the best episode of TV I feel like I've seen all year. I was just riveted. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on. The white people outside, and I don't want to tell it all because I know y'all got stuff to say. Blowing on their horns. I was like, how are they making their horns blow? And then they show you that they set bricks. I mean, just how hateful. How hateful are you? You had to work to tie that brick up, to have that horn blowing all freaking night long. Why? You know, I don't understand that amount of hate, you know? But anyway, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. Oh, well, I was just going to say, Dana, you were talking about the people and the experiments. And I think that that's another example of where just putting in the reality of these historical events, fictionalizing them, turning them into a horror story. You know, you can compare this to that first season of American Horror Story, and you know all the people in the basement and that doctor that was doing experiments on folks and all the people who were stuck in that house and all of that. It's a very similar storyline, but how much more horrific is it when it's based on the real American horror stories that real people have been living through? It just takes this up, and it makes it even so much more traumatic. It's just again just really, really strong storytelling.
What were you gonna say, Stacey?
Well, overall, I like this episode a lot. This was probably the best, or to me, and also the most horror kind of the all the episodes. But it was one of those that I did the kind of same thing at the end of it. You're like, oh, you're chanting with her, and you feel like crying because of what happened to those people. They disappeared, and you know that the police were involved in it. He brought those, people there to die. And what I really also liked about this was the music. In a lot of the episodes, when we start watching them, and I didn't pay as much attention. I was like, oh, the music's good, but what the music was actually saying in some of those places when things were happening, when they were burning the cross, and they started playing. I actually wrote that down. So like, okay, what was they playing there? What the Devil Done Stole, and they were playing that as she was, putting and she was just tearing up those cars, and then how they all work together. It's like, we've all done this. Now, Ruby, let's put all the guns in the car. You drive off so we don't have any of this evidence, and drive off, and they all work together in that. And how Tick would wear his soldier's uniform to hopefully try to protect them in a way by saying that, have that responsibility. I'm a soldier. I'm a U.S. soldier. I am a U.S. citizen. And that still really didn't help because you're still black. And that music at the end when they played Satan, we're going to take your kingdom down at the end when she's doing the chant, that's what she's playing that. And I just really like in all the episodes how music is involved in it, because we started talking about, moving on up, and it was just that feeling you have, and you don't really even think about it until the music is playing, how it changes the feeling of it. When you're moving on up, you're like, just felt happy. They just went through all this crap, but when we're moving on up, you just get that whole happy feeling. And then when you're playing the other songs about what the devil done stole and all that, you really are feeling what they're feeling, and that's kind of enhancing that whole thing, that part of that show. I really did enjoy it. This one was the best episode out of all of them. But
this is the episode where I almost did not finish watching this series. Like at the end of this episode, I was so emotionally drained from all these things. I was like, you know what? I don't think I can watch the rest of the show. Like I told Dana, I was like, I think I'm out. I really do. I had to wait. Like I think I waited till episode 5 before I started back. Maybe episode 6. She continued, and I was like, I got to take a moment before I can get back into it, because it is emotionally draining. I mean, you see things, and it's not it's just up front in your face. Like they use really great makeup, okay, and special effects, and everything like that to really just show you what it is that you need to see. I also to get to get past that and add more to it is that I also like that we started to get the relationship building between Montrose and Tick. So you can really start to see there's something there that's causing that much friction between the two of them. We really don't know deeply what it is that's happened, but you start to get those emotions from those two characters and what their relationship is really like. Because like when they're sitting there at the table and Montrose gets angry and he's just like, you know, this is my house, blah, blah, blah. And Tick jumps up, but he jumps back like he's scared because he knows that he's scared of his father. But then he also kind of stands up proud, like, you know, you're not going to talk to me like that anymore in a certain way as well. So I like that we're getting relationship building from there. I like that we're getting relationship building from Ruby and Letitia, you know, Letty. I like that we're trying to figure out what their dynamic is all about. I liked all of that. I mean, I just thought it was really, really good. You know, I like the fact that they start talking about how Letty wanted to take this house and turn it into a boarding house. You know, so you get that when you're talking about the community and, you know, talking about how she wants to do things like that. So I thought all of it was just fantastic, but it was probably the toughest episode that I've ever seen. And I watched it for the second time before we did this podcast. And even the second time it had me really, really emotional where I was like, I can't watch this. Like I almost turned it off. I was just like, I can't watch this. This is just so awful, you know?
Is it the last scene?
It's the last scene. You know, it was multiple things, to be honest with you. It wasn't just a horror aspect, you know, and also the racism. It was also a spiritual. It was something spiritual within me that was bothering me. Because, you know, and we're talking about spoilers, we're talking about this whole thing, is that when Tick is sitting there and he's basically being possessed, you know, with this character, and he's coming out into his body, the twitching of his face and him speaking in different tongues and all that kind of stuff really spiritually bothered me. Like I was scared. Like I was just like, I don't like that. That does something to my soul. I'm just like, I can't. So it was that on top of everything else. I was like, this is really bad. Like I've seen horror movies, I've seen horror TV shows, but this is just like another level. It's really another level.
To me, the photos of, like, I used to do darkroom class, like the photo effect where you blend and you see multiple faces. So for what Corey's saying, the photo when they were in that diner shop, like that black and white photo freaked me out. I was like, Lord, like what is going on? And then obviously you see the Creole sister come in and she got the gold. And I was like, oh Lord, have mercy. I was about to start praise dancing myself. Like, what did I sign up for? What are my friends making me say? What, Data?
I said that was funny because did you see Tick and Letitia look at her like when she put the X's up there?
Yeah, they were like, "What? Okay, you know." And
then
exactly
how I was feeling. Like, what the? And you doing?
Yeah. Right. And something told me, I don't know what it is, you all, but once I saw her come in, I was like, she ain't gonna make it. Like I had never would have made it. The gospel song in my mind, I was like, she ain't gonna make it. It's something's gonna persist. And I know, like, I guess this is my opinion of what Corey was saying in terms of it freaked me out, but I was kind of intrigued. I was like, oh my God, like this emotionally, this when I say the episode 3, this took me all the way there. And I liked it, even though I was like, wow, this is taking me through a lot of stuff. I was like, this is really powerful. So I would say this third episode, I felt the most like was the most powerful. With images, like I said, the blending of the black and white photos to the praise dancing at the very beginning when Letty's in church, she's staring, not saying the word, just staring, and then the person's dancing, and I didn't see a casket. So I was like, so like, is this a funeral or is this a praise dance? So I had questions, but again, I'm like, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna let the story and I'm gonna let the characters, tell me what it is, but I'm okay with it. Please give me more. And I guess for episode 3, I also liked, I think the white boys that were outside and the brick thing, and like Dana was saying, like the beat, her moment where she had the Beyonce Lemonade moment, she smashed
Yeah.
windows and music again. Like Stacey said, the music matched the mood of how I felt, and I was like, this is appropriate with the cross and everything. Emotionally, this episode just took me to a lot of places. And I was like, I didn't feel as much emotion with 1 or 2. I felt a certain way, but this one emotionally and passionately, I felt was the most powerful out of the 3 that I saw. And then the basement and the lower part of to me, one of the scariest parts is dimensions of a house and where people are, I'm just like, are people under there? Are people living somewhere? I like that stuff. I like for scary episodes or movies or whatever to take me there. And so obviously there's some connections at the end. And I was like, is that connected to episode 1 or are other people down there? I don't know. But that freaked me out too. I'm just like, are there other skeletons in the closet that this series is going to tell us? Who knows? But I don't know. It was scary. And the when that again, that Creole sister hit the ceiling and she slammed down. I said, oh Lord, like where's my Bible? Y'all know I have my Stacey, I have these where's my Bible moments. That was that moment.
So speaking of that, Jerry, and I'm just going to show my ignorance, I'll put it out on display for everybody. Corey and I were talking about this. So when I hear about the Order of Adam or whatever, in my mind, I'm thinking this is a little group of people, they practice. Again, we were talking about that one movie. I don't really, I'm not up on my whole satanic stuff. So this does not, believe it or not, y'all, it doesn't cross my mind. When I think witchcraft, I don't associate that with demonic. I think it could be, but that's not how I look at it, So if I, were to watch certain movies and they did magic spells, I don't go, oh, that's devil worship. Okay. So I'm not even thinking in the realms of this. I'm thinking this is a group of people who do bad stuff and they practice magic. My understanding is the Book of Adam is like the cipher to open up the book of spells. This sounds like some Harry Potter kind of whatever, but negative, bad. So I get that, but I didn't associate it with anything like that. But Corey's like, no, they're saying something about Satan and all this other stuff. And I'm like, because I don't normally watch that kind of stuff. But I totally missed it on this. And I wanted to know what y'all thought about that. Is that the vibe y'all were getting like from the beginning of the show, or what?
Well, yeah, I think, to me, when I saw The Conjuring and some of this other stuff, it was the same thing. It was done in different way, obviously different characters. But to your statement, Dana, it made me feel the same with it was spells and different people. Now they used, obviously they were connecting it because it was a true story. They said they were connecting it to a preacher coming in and doing a ritual, but there was still ritualistic stuff in this that I felt, to me, made it feel more real, made it feel more like, okay, this is you bringing in somebody that is in a house. Like Corey was saying, this is a shelter, this is a house, but everyone knows it's haunted. She's seen things, the hand pulling the covers, the ghost with the head popping, like she's connecting things. And so to me, I was like, there's some spirits, but either I had 2 options. Someone has to cure this thing, or either her and Atticus and someone's going to have to figure out a solution to it. So either an outside party or them in the house is going to have to deal with it. So I was like, there has to be some spiritual, maybe not demonic, but there has to be some negative
spirits and things like that. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I didn't even go down that path. Like, if you were like, come on, let's watch The Exorcist, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm not really into that. But it didn't even connect for me. Like, I wasn't even thinking that. And again, maybe because I'm not used to seeing Black people in those types of movies. So I wasn't even, going.
They're there. They just don't last that long.
I didn't think of it as demonic or anything like that either. When they, in the very first or second, well, it might be the second one, they talked about how Arkham was founded or who founded it. And it was like, oh, they're founded by witches. And he's like, no, the witch finders. And it's really, or the witch prosecutors or whatever, hunters.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was, they were like, they're treating magic as a science. And so that's why they want the Book of Names and all that, because they want to learn that and have that power. But true witchcraft, I think, to them was people who had those natural abilities, and that's evil. But we have to learn ours through a scientific way, even though I mean, it's still magic, but they believed more like, we have to do these rituals, we have to do this and this and this spell just like this. And it was to them like a formula. And have y'all seen The Magicians or anything on Sci-Fi Network?
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I think we saw a movie like that, but not the show. No. Okay, go ahead.
If you see that, it's kind of like that. Magic to them is a science. They call it a natural science, and you have to do formulas and stuff. And it wasn't really something that you may have an inclination for it, but you still had to work on it because it was like a science, just a different part of science. And I think that's what this is kind of, they're trying to get to the point where they are the top of that field of magic. Right. And when they call it the Book of Names, and you see how names are important in this whole series, because they are trying to get that, the Book of Names, or how Adam named everything, and how you give something a name, you have power over it.
Right.
And you see that Letty, she calls those people at the end, she calls them by name, and they come to help. And so you can see how names have power. They bring that in from other, if you read those kind of genres or watch those kind of things, how names have power. And I really like that they're pulling in, or they actually use that stuff from other genres or other shows, that names do mean power, and they were bringing that in and actually owning or giving something a name. It gives it a power that you didn't, or a power over it up to a point that you may not have had before.
Yeah, maybe it's the Ouija board. Maybe it's that little Ouija board that made me feel.
Oh, that was creepy.
Maybe,
yeah, I didn't like that.
Maybe that aspect kind of creeped into my, like, when I saw that Ouija board, I think that took me. So, but that's a good point. But when I saw the little, the little kids they're playing now, I was like, I don't know. And I want to ask you, I think I put some phone notes and kind of like, what is that something that is just put in there just as a game? Or is that like another representation? But those things made me kind of like, I don't know.
Again, I'll say, and again, this is just how I grew up. I don't know not one black person who played with no Ouija board.
That was evil.
We just didn't do that kind of stuff. So, and even now that I think about it, you brought it up, like, who do we think was moving the pieces? Like, what spirit or ghost or whatever do we think, was it
I don't know.
I know, but I felt so bad when I was watching that, and the boy who said, am I going to have a good time when and I was like, no, you're not.
Right. Right.
Just really, really.
Yeah, but that's another thing though, Stacey, about this show, how they do that kind of stuff. They slip that kind of stuff in, and it just makes it even, what it is, it makes it just has so many dimensions to one show. It's not flat at all. It's just like, there's little stuff, like I think you mentioned earlier, Jeremy, like little Easter eggs and stuff all over the place. One of which I want to ask y'all about. So I was looking up the name Hippolyta, because when I first heard her name Hippolyta, I was like, what kind of name is Hippolyta? I had never heard about that. So I looked it up and I saw, it's supposed to be like a goddess of the Amazon. Okay, so they were saying that goddess of the Amazon, who is the goddess of who do we know from the Amazon? We know Wonder Woman. So this is supposed to be Wonder Woman's mother, maybe. Okay. And then think about the daughter's name. We call her Dee, but her name is Diana.
Diana.
Mm-hmm. And so now I'm like, oh my God.
Mind blown. Yeah.
And she draws what? Comics. So I can't say it's nothing, because obviously it's done on purpose. There are too many things going on here. Now, whether that will show up later in this season or another season, I don't know. But when I was like, jaw dropped and everything. Like, that's just how the show is. It's something. And I know if I go watch it again or look up something else, I'll learn something new. one of the things, I don't know, Stacey, if you posted in our group or not, but somebody posted their actual their syllabus or syllabi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Marcy posted that for us.
Okay, for each one of these episodes.
Cool.
And so not only does it, talk a little bit about the episode, but it gives you the historical reference. And it gives you the books and all this other stuff. And you could go, down a rabbit hole looking at all this stuff. But it's so awesome because, like, one of the things, like, we were talking about music, Stacey. So, like, Whitey on the Moon. So when they were playing that song, we had closed caption on. So I was listening to everything they were saying. And, in my mind, I was getting the gist of, like, I got all this other ish going on. Whitey's on the moon. Whoopie-doo. Like, I got real life here, But, like, reading it. And so, like, in one of them, it actually had all the words written out to it and everything. And at the end, he says something like, I'll take all my problems and give it to Whitey on the moon. Here, you can have all this stuff or whatever. But I was just like, oh, I didn't know that. And you can read all this stuff. So it's like, I'll try to put it down, like, Brian or Corey, like, in the description or something, because
That
really
would be
neat.
great. Because I get the feeling that we're highly recommending this series to people.
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think overall, and I just wanted to say, it seems like episode 3 is a favorite. I just want to say that Hippolyta episode, Diana's episode, and the one that really freaked me out more than any of them was Ruby's episode. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Ruby's episode is like, wow.
I just want Ruby to have her own show.
Yes.
I'm there for Ruby.
So you've got a lot to look forward to, Jeremy.
Yeah.
You do.
Just
Please
pretend to see.
don't give it up.
I won't spoil any of that. But those were so great.
Jeremy, don't give it up. Please continue to watch it.
Oh.
Yeah, Danny, I caught what you said, Danny.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too, though, is like I said, we watched the first 3 episodes again before we did this podcast. The very first episode, in the first 2 minutes, it references something that happens in like episode 6 or 7, and I didn't even know, like, they were dropping those little things at the very, very beginning, and I was just like, we don't even know what this means, but it's there, and I was just like, wow. That's just crazy. When you go back and watch it again, after you watch the whole thing, you see those things. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Corey, somebody mentioned that opening scene
Yeah.
that it looks like something that could have been out of, like, the Avengers or something Wonder Woman-ish. I don't know. I didn't watch that, so I'm not sure. So it might even be worth looking at it one more time.
It's War of the Worlds.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what
War
really.
of the Worlds robot thing.
Yeah,
They're saying there's some Amazon stuff going. There was so much going on out there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Something else going on. So I was like, maybe I need to go back and look at that. I do know the War of the Worlds. I did remember seeing that because we talked about the Tom Cruise movie.
And Wonder Woman does play into that first scene too.
So
yeah,
very interesting.
A little bit off topic, but still within the show. Did we ever find why did Atticus never like Tree? It's
I was like, what? I mean,
what did he do?
I can see him being annoying, but, like, not so much that you would. I mean, because he's pretty rude to him. Like,
but he starts off being rude to him. It's just like, what did he bully you when he's a kid? It's just
I don't know. There's a lot of that stuff, Stacey, where I'm like, what? Like, there, and here's the thing, and nothing's perfect. And I saw this is something somebody else said, and I was like, you know what, you're right. For anybody to try to hold this show up to being perfect, you know how they say, the saying that is, if you're Black, you have to be better than everybody else just to be, equal to them or whatever. And I think for anybody who looks at this show and is like, well, it wasn't perfect. There were little things here, there. What show isn't without that kind of stuff, I am so pushing so hard. I want them to come back, and I haven't heard yet, but I thought they were supposed to announce it October, whether they're going to do a season 2. But y'all, I need more of this in my life. I really, really do.
Well, that's hard to make a whole series perfect. Do you realize the statement is saying like a movie, y'all? Okay, a 2-hour, but a whole series perfect? I don't know. I mean, we've had series that I think we've rated high, but a damn near perfect.
Right.
So to agree with Dana, I mean, we all have said just the first 3 episodes are pretty solid. So I mean, I did kind of think about like, are there criticisms? And I haven't even looked on Rotten Tomatoes, and there are people who review Lovecraft all day, all night on YouTube. But I mean, everyone has pretty much said it's positive. Rotten Tomatoes is like 90%. I can't remember, but everything has said it's pretty good.
So it's funny because Entertainment Weekly got sneak peeks of this. And when they first put out their review, I don't know if it was the first 2 or 3 episodes, they didn't like it. Now, I'm sure they've since come back and changed their mind. But it's really important to me because I want things like this in The Watchmen to continue to be made. So, like, if I don't want people to be like, no. You see, if you didn't like it, shut up. Or whatever, like, all the viewership that it brought in. Like, if we want this stuff to continue, we need to speak positively about it and push forward. And so, like, a lot of stuff, I'm like, I've never seen that before, dude. There's a reason why nobody's done it. So I want them to be able to continue to have those opportunities. So we have to support them. But
I was just going to say, once it starts to spread out with critics and everything like that, and then you start seeing the accolades come and you start seeing the Emmys and stuff that are tossed their way, you can't avoid that, So I really think that they're going to continue to do that.
Yeah, this is going to build up. Yeah, this is going to build up quite a bit of momentum. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm hoping the same for Watchmen. Like, I know initially it was just supposed to be like a little short, no. Don't. We need this kind of stuff. We need this type of representation. Just, I don't know. I've been very excited about some of the stuff that HBO has done here lately. And I know Netflix has the money to do it too. And and Netflix is pretty good about, doing stuff like this, in terms of getting things out there that just don't fall into the same stuff we've seen over and over. And sometimes it's hit or miss, and that's fine. But I love the direction, I guess, that we're going. So like I'm excited about all this stuff. All right.
Do we want to give a rating? We don't need to give one.
I give it a 2. 100,000.
So you gonna do a whole episode by yourself, right?
This is why
6 stars out of 5.
All right, exactly. This is our 6 star.
I would totally buy this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would totally. Is there anybody who wouldn't give it like a 4 or 5? I would totally give it 5.
No, I think I'd give it a 4.5. Okay. 4.5 or 5. Yeah, absolutely. This is just there isn't much better content on TV right now. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I would even love if they at some point when the world in COVID, like in the theaters, like a side kind of like like a side story that adapts the Lovecraft Country. Oh man, I would eat that up. I would love to see that.
Big screen,
Dolby effects. I mean, that I had to turn my settings up just to hear some of the effects and the music, like we said, and the just scary. I would love to, if they ever came up with one, I'm just saying I would love to see it like with this group, or just see it, because I think it's so intriguing. And so far I've only seen 3, so I can't even imagine what, like, I think Dana said series 2, or if it does I don't know, man. So
you have no idea what you're in for, Jeremy.
Well,
you gotta keep watching it.
Well, here's my defense of it being a series on television. Having how many episodes was it? Was it
8?
10?
Oh,
8?
10?
No, I think it was 10.
8 or 10.
Oh, okay.
We thought it was 8, but I thought it was more than that. I think.
Okay. I think you're right. Yeah.
Each episode is kind of an anthology. It focuses on one kind of story at a time, or a component of the overall story, and which is perfect for a television series. But being able to adapt that from a novel and give it that much time to devote to it, you can only do that in the television series now. And so I would be afraid of it being a movie. Or what?
I could do 10 movies. Like, this could be the next Avengers series.
Well, these were like 10 movies, though. I mean, they were. I mean, the quality on each one of these hours, I'm sure they could have. Each one of these episodes could have been an hour and a half.
Yeah, especially the last episode. I was like, oh, I know this is gonna be longer.
Yeah.
But
you
the
don't have
book
to
kind
wrap it.
of does the same thing, that each part of the book is like it's also an episode, and it's the same thing. Whereas you don't have to necessarily read the whole book to get it. You can have, oh, I just read this part of it,
Okay.
and I would give it a 4.5 or 5, because when they said it was coming out, oh, let me read the book again, and I did that. And then once starting the show, it was like, oh, and I'll see this again to get some more stuff on it. So this was, to me, I really enjoyed this. It's probably one of the best TV shows or series I've seen in a long time.
Stacey, would you recommend people read the book? Because I haven't read the book, but if it's anything, if it's anywhere close as good as the series,
The book was good because I was thinking I wanted to see the TV show because of the book, but if you watch the TV show first or the series first and then the book, you kind of think, for me, it'll be more of a letdown at that point, because I liked the show so much better than the book.
Okay.
They made certain things a lot more. Well, episode 3 is a lot, to me, scarier and more emotional in the show. In the book, it was like, oh, it's a scary house, and in the end, it was like, it actually ended kind of not heartwarming, but it wasn't scary. It wasn't scary at all. So I really was not expecting it to be as emotionally, and for me to cry in the show while I'm actually reading this in the book. So to me, I don't necessarily recommend read. If you've seen the TV show, I wouldn't recommend, go back and read the book. No, you don't have to. But if you read the book, most definitely watch the TV show.
Well, this concludes this episode of the L-5 podcast. Thanks for watching.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.